Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a book that pretty much blew up modern dating advice, Models by Mark Manson. The whole idea here is that attraction isn't about faking it till you make it. Nope, it's all about being radically, brutally honest.
So that's the big question, right? Manson goes right after it, but his answer has nothing to do with clever lines or sneaky tricks. Instead, it's a really deep dive into psychology, and it challenges pretty much everything guys have been taught about attraction. Okay, let's get into it. So here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with what he calls the performance trap, where so many people get stuck. Then we'll figure out what's really going on with the investment paradox. After that, we hit the big solution, and it's a weird one. Vulnerability is power. We'll see how that leads to this wild strategy where rejection is actually the goal, and then we'll wrap it all up with how this becomes a whole philosophy for living an honest life.
So let's start with the problem Manson really hones in on, this performance trap. I'm talking about the entire world of pickup lines, acting confident when you're not, all of it. The main idea here is super simple. Trying to be someone you're not is a game you're pretty much always going to lose. To really hammer this home, the book tells a story about a guy named Daniel. So after years of striking out, Daniel hits the books, he learns all these techniques and lines, and boom, he actually gets a date with a woman named Stacy. He's on top of the world. It looks like the system works.
But here's the thing. After a couple of dates, keeping up the act was just exhausting. Daniel slowly slipped back into being his real, kinda unconfident self. The witty lines dried up, and that spark just fizzled out. And this right here is the core of the problem. A performance might get your foot in the door, but it's a short-term fix. It's built on neediness, and that is just not a solid foundation for real, genuine attraction.
Okay, so why does pretending to be someone else always backfire? Manson says it's because of this fundamental conflict he calls the investment paradox. It's this kind of lose-lose situation that's baked right into a lot of the traditional dating advice, and honestly, it's a fascinating idea.
So here's the deal. The theory is that women are naturally drawn to high-status guys, the ones who seem less emotionally invested. But to even show you're interested, you have to pursue her, right? And that pursuit signals higher investment, which can come across as needy, making you seem lower status and, well, less attractive. See the problem? How can you possibly show interest without looking desperate?
And this is the no-win situation it creates. On one hand, you've got the high-status guy who's attractive precisely because he isn't needy. But if you don't chase, how does anything ever get started? Then, on the other hand, the second you start pursuing, you signal that neediness, and you risk killing the attraction right there. It's a total catch-22.
This question is exactly what the rest of the book is all about. If all the old rules just set you up to fail, there has to be another way to play the game. Or, even better, maybe there's a way to stop playing games at all.
And this is where Manson completely flips the script. His solution is, well, it's really counterintuitive, especially for guys who've been told their whole lives to be tough and hide their feelings. He says that real power, the true sign of high status, actually comes from vulnerability.
Now, when Manson talks about vulnerability, he doesn't mean weakness or being needy. Not at all. For him, it's the ultimate show of confidence. It's being willing to say, hey, this is who I am, these are my actual thoughts, and I'm not afraid of how you're going to react. That, he argues, is what true high-status behavior really is.
So the real difference is between posturing and just being honest. The non-vulnerable guy, the performer, he hides behind this tough guy facade. That tends to either attract drama or just push away confident women. But the vulnerable, honest guy, he just says how he really feels. And that leads to one of two things, either a real, meaningful connection or the ability to just walk away from a bad fit. It's basically a filter.
So this whole belief in vulnerability leads to a pretty radical strategy. One where the goal isn't always to get a yes, but just to get a clear answer, one way or another.
All right, so to explain this, Manson tells this infamous and, totally outrageous story about one of his friends. His friend would literally use this line. Now, obviously, it failed spectacularly almost every time, but the point is why it sometimes actually worked. His intention was so playful, so completely non-needy, that it just short-circuited the whole normal social script. It proved something huge. Your intention, your lack of neediness, can be way more powerful than the actual words you use.
This brings us to the main strategy, polarization. So instead of trying to be liked by everyone, you use your honesty to get a strong reaction. The goal is a fuck yes or a clear no. You want to completely eliminate meh from your life. Suddenly, rejection isn't failure anymore. It's just a data point. It becomes a tool for finding the right people for you, way faster.
So this strategy gives you a super simple sorting system.
If someone is clearly not interested, your job is easy. Move on. If they are interested, great. Your job is to escalate. But the real game is in that neutral zone where the jury's still out. In that case, your goal is to polarize them with some kind of honest action to get them off the fence. It just makes navigating social situations way more efficient.
And finally, we get to maybe the most important part. Manson argues this is not just a handful of dating tactics. It's a full-on framework for changing your life from the inside out so that attraction becomes a natural byproduct of who you are.
He boils it all down to what he calls the 3 fundamentals. First, honest living, building a life you're actually proud of based on your own values. Second, honest action. That's about getting the courage to act in spite of your fear. And third, honest communication, getting good at expressing yourself openly. You put those together and they become the foundation for making attraction pretty much effortless because it's just coming from who you are at your core.
The book ends with this really powerful, kind of provocative thought. It asks you to reframe every challenge, every single setback, and, yep, every rejection, not as a failure, but as a gift. A gift that shows you exactly where you need to grow and pushes you to become a more honest, more confident version of yourself. And really, that's the big takeaway from all this. Attraction isn't something you perform, it's something you become.